Hey friends, Kevin here. Today I have two things that I want to accomplish today on the 182. Number one is the oil pressure. So the oil pressure is in the green arc, and I'll show you the arc in a little bit. Unfortunately, Cessna doesn't actually call out numbers on their oil pressure gauge. It's just more of a green arc, and it's in the green arc but on the low edge. I would love to see that up at least in the mid-range or needle width away from the very high end during normal operating temperature. So I'm going to adjust the oil pressure. The second thing I want to do is I need to bump down my idle a little bit. It's idling pretty high, around 700. I think this engine could actually idle a little bit slower. I wouldn't have to use quite as much brakes when taxiing. So I'm constantly finding myself wanting to pull the throttle back a little bit. So it's kind of like an instinctive way of knowing that I've already feel that it's just idling too high. So that's what we're going to do. Let's get to work. All right, so there's my gauges. I think a second ago I said Cessna doesn't actually give you the numbers on the oil pressure. Well, that was a lie. They obviously do, and I knew that. But what I was more thinking about was the oil temp. And you can see the oil temp just goes red line at 240. I have no problems with the oil temp on this, and I'll show you why in a second. But that's kind of what I was thinking of, lack of numbers here, because you want to see at least 180 degrees on your oil temp. And one of the things that I've done on a lot of airplanes is I've actually created cards that actually each letter there, oil and temp, will correspond to a certain temperature. So that's something I'm going to do at a later time. But right now we are going to work on number one, oil pressure, bump that up a little bit. And number two, pull that RPM down a little bit. Well, the great thing about this project is we're going to have to go for a test flight. So let me talk to you about that oil. Why I'm not so worried about my oil temperature is that this is the great thing about this particular aircraft. And it's kind of the light coming there, but this cowl opening, it's all oil cooler. So it's got a huge oil cooler on here. Not so much on that side because that's letting air in for the cylinders as well as the other side. So that's what we're going to do. Let's get to work. All right, so I got the cowling off. It's actually really easy to get the top cowling off on this aircraft, and I had to close the door. It's hot. But here, this blue rubber seal, this is all that seal that my daughter Katie and I replaced all around there, all around the front. You can't see it, but it goes down underneath this cowling. And over there, that cowling, there we go. You can see all the light blue that we replaced on that. That was so nasty. So also, I took the time to, and it's important to me, to seal up all these gaps and holes. So anywhere there's an air leak, it's a cooling leak. So it took care of all of that. So to adjust the oil pressure, what I'm after, I don't even know if I can get the camera down there to show you guys. Let's see here. Yeah, maybe not. But there is down there, way down there, there is a bolt. Get out of the way. There's a bolt down there that I have to undo with a nut on the end. So undo the nut and then just screw in the little bolt. I'm going to do one turn. And then as far as the adjustment of the carburetor goes, see if I can get you guys down in there. Let's see, carburetor. There's my carburetor. What I'm looking for is a screw. There we go. A screw on the back side. So if I can reach my hand up in there and get that screw and just turn it out, maybe about a quarter of a turn's all I'm going to do. So, and the reason why I'm doing all of this without taking this lower cowl off is because that is the problem with 182s. They're a little difficult in that they have cowl flaps. These flaps go up and down for cooling. So down the ground, they'll be down, up in flight, they'll be up, depending on my needs. And so I have to undo the cowl flaps. That's not a big deal. But the air box up there has to be unscrewed, and so I got to work through these little holes right here and then drop it down, and it's actually kind of heavy for one person. So I'm not going to do that. So what I'm going to do is try to adjust it all without taking that bottom cowl off. So back to work. All right, so I didn't really show you what I was doing while I was working on it, because honestly all you would have saw is my backside as I was trying to fight my way down in there. You know, that's the thing about airplanes. Sometimes it's frustrating. You can see what it is you want to get to, but you can't get your hands on it. Well, in this particular case, it was, well, let me go to the board. Maybe I can show you what I was trying to do. Okay, so here's what I'm trying to do. So back inside of there is this plunger that is screwed into this housing. And there's a nut right here, and then there's a hole inside the shaft. So as you can imagine, as I get my wrench up on this nut and loosen this nut, it just backs this all the way out. Well, that's the opposite of what I want to do. I want to push this red plunger in, put more pressure on the spring, which puts more pressure on the relief valve that holds more pressure into the engine. So as I move this off, the whole thing moves out. So I have to put my pin through this hole right here, hang on to that while I'm doing this. And I got to do that all pretty much one-handed. So it's not quite an exact science to say I want one nice turn on it. You're going to kind of get what you get. So you back this off a little bit and hold it and then push it all together. Anyway, so that's what I did inside there. All right, and I also managed to get 1/4 of a turn out on the throttle. So it should idle just a little bit slower. Now, let me show you something. I've talked a lot about cushion on aircraft throttles, and that's really important to me. In fact, it's one of the things that I had to, probably the first project I did on this airplane when I got it back to California was I adjusted the throttle prop and mixture cushion as well as changed that engine baffling out. So let me show you what I'm talking about right there. All right, so these are the controls for this engine. We have carburetor heat, which we've talked quite a bit about. We have the throttle, or we could call it manifold pressure, depending on what we're doing, the propeller pitch, and my mixture control. So what was really obnoxious to me and not appreciative is when I go to take off and I go to full power, I want to know that I'm full power up at that carburetor and not that it's hitting right here. And that's exactly what I had my first several flights with this. It would hit here first. So there was no way for me to absolutely know, was I getting full throttle? So I've adjusted it now, so there's no doubt. When I'm flying it, I can see that little gap up there, and I know that I'm hitting full throttle out at the carburetor. Now, I don't have to worry about it so much going this way, although I did check it, but this is my idle position. Now, sometimes it's not a perfect world. You can see that I do have some cushion built up right here with the propeller. Now, I can promise you, with the propeller, this is a veneer control, which veneer means that I can adjust it like this and it's going to go in real slow, or I can push the button and go in fast. So I know, and I've had someone out there watching it, they'll bring it forward, 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 and they'll say, it hits, and I can verify that I have my proper cushion, but there's flex in the cable. It's going all the way to the front of the engine. So if I push hard enough, it'll, well, bounces back a little bit. And that's what I want. So that looks good. And same thing with the mixture. So mixture is right there. I got nice cushion. I know I'm hitting it full rich. I'm pulling it back. I've got full lean and idle cutoff. So got idle cutoff. So I want to make sure I leave these. Oh, and I did the same thing for my carb heat. And you can see if I bring that in there, boom, I got a little cushion there. I got a lot of cushion. 1/8 inch is the required amount. I like a little bit more so that I'm not having to worry about it. So I always want to leave my controls in a safe way. I wouldn't want to leave it full throttle in case for some reason the prop started in here. I don't need this thing going to 230 horsepower in the hangar. So bad enough that. It's going to be bad enough. So I want to leave it throttle out, idle cutoff, high RPM, cold. Although this doesn't matter so much where I leave it. It just makes sense to leave it here because I'm going to start it there. Because remember, when the carburetor heat is on, I do not have filtered air. And if you've looked outside lately, I want filtered air. So that's it. So next step, we need to put the cowling back on, take it outside, and I will check the idle the idle speed. I want to make sure it does not die when I pull it back to idle. And as long as it doesn't do that, I got to take it around the pattern at least once or twice, build up a little bit of heat in the oil, make sure that the oil temp is correct for my oil pressure. We'll see how it goes. So it's back to work. Okay, cowling's all back on, but you notice I didn't close the oil door, and I did that for a reason, because I want to leave a reminder that I haven't done a pre-flight yet. So I've done some maintenance. I've got to do a simple log entry. It can be anything. I just take a piece of paper, binder paper, whatever, write out my log entry. When I get home, I can put it in the logbook, or I can rewrite it in the logbook, however I want to do it. But every time you do maintenance, you have to do a log entry. So I get my log entry done. Then I'm going to do a pre-flight. So the way I do a pre-flight is I don't use a checklist to start. I just have a procedure. I've been doing it for a long time. I go around the aircraft. I think about the aircraft, look at what I'm looking at. I don't want to focus on a checklist, but then I go back to a checklist and I go through a checklist. Just the way I do it, it's almost a way of doing a pre-flight twice, but it's the way I like to do it. So I'll kind of walk you through what I do. All right, it's kind of hard for me to film myself and the airplane at the same time. I asked Katie to come, she didn't want to. So anyway, where I start, I always like to start with my fuel. So my fuel caps are up here. It's 40 gallons each side, and I'm on a ladder right now, and this is as far up as I can get. So I can't really see in there. I suppose I could use a match or something. I'm just kidding, don't try that. But what I have here are these little fuel indicator sticks. It's a straw that's calibrated for this aircraft, and they're pretty cheap. So just put my finger over that, lift it up, take a look. Let me see, didn't get anything. There, 25 gallons. So I've got 25 out of 40 gallons. Seems a little, yep, 25. 25, I was gonna say, it seems a little low for the little bit I flew it, but I forgot, I actually flew it more than that. And for whatever reason, this aircraft really favors this wing as far as pulling fuel. So in a long cross-country flight, or, gotta push that all the way down, it's not quite right, it doesn't go down, there we go, all the way down and locked. There's a little vent. So anyway, I was saying, this aircraft really favors this side over here, the left side. I think I said right a few times because it's on my right now. Like my industrial fan. It's hot in here. All right. So we'll check this one. So I had 25 gallons over there. Pulling it up. And 30 on this side. So 25 and 30. So I like to calculate. Easy math is 10 gallons per hour, so, and then leave yourself some room. So that's 50, 60 gallons. So I've got enough for at least for 6 hours, but if I want to be safe, reduce that by another hour and say I've got enough for, I lost my 5 hours. So, all right, so that's my little straw. Put that back over there. Hopefully I'm not making you sick running around. So I always start with the fuel. Back here's my fuel sample cup. And we're going to take a sample of fuel out of the wings. And what I'm looking for is make sure it's blue and that there's no water on the bottom. Now it's possible you could get an entire cup full of water and be fooled. So that's why you want to make sure that it's blue and it looks like fuel and it looks good. Now, what do you do with this fuel right here? I don't like to put it back in the aircraft. So I've got a little, might be a little noisy right here, but I got a little tug right here and it runs really good off of 100 low lead. So I just pour that in there. Check my other one. Looks really, really good. Pour that into my little tug, mostly. All right, and then inside of the cowling, I've got my oil level gauge and a pull, right there, there you go, fuel strainer drain. When I pull that, it's just gonna run all over the ground over there. So I don't like to do it very much. I kind of wish it was over on this side so I could take a sample. It's not on this side, so I can't take a sample. So I do that, put that away, put that away, and grab my towel. And we're gonna check the oil level. So this thing holds 12 quarts. 12 quarts. I'm gonna have to set this down to look at it. So 12 quarts, get out of the sun. Sorry, I'm at about 8.5. It loves to run right about 8.5 quarts. I'm trying to experiment, see how much I can put in there. And then, let me explain this a little more. So the sump is a 12 quart sump. But I've got a huge oil cooler and a very large oil filter. And those two things, each themselves, hold about a quart. So I put in, when I changed the oil, I put in 10 quarts. It showed 8 on the oil level gauge or dipstick. And right now when I'm checking it, I can see that I have just under 10 quarts. So let me run that by you again. I put 10 quarts in and it was showing 8. I put in another quart yesterday. So for a total of 11 quarts, and it's showing now after sitting overnight, 10 quarts. So it's a good number to work with. Hey, something else too, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but this belly's got some oil on it. And that has kind of kept me awake at night. It's not terrible. You know, I flew it all the way back from Minnesota and only added a quart, and I didn't need to. Honestly, it stayed right at 8 quarts the whole way, and the guy I bought it from said, oh, no, leave it at 8. It'll always be at 8. Don't worry about it. And the engine's only got 70, 80 hours since major overhaul. So, but that oil leak's been keeping awake at night because, you know me, it's never something good. It's always, you know, it must be a cracked cylinder or a cracked case. It's always worst case scenario. So while I was in there adjusting this stuff and I brought my mirror, I really gave it a hard inspect, and I found the leak to be a leaky tack seal. I don't think it could get any better for me. A tack seal should not be a difficult thing to change. So I just got to get there and change out leaky tack seal. That is probably the cheapest possible scenario. All right, so check the fuel. Fuel is good. Check the oil. Oil is good. I come back to the front of the airplane, and the first thing I want to do is check my propeller. Check it for any nicks, dings, scratches, anything that could cause any problems before we take off. We're in flight. Also, you want to give it a little back and forth. Make sure that the bearings in the hub have not given way. So it feels nice. Inspect the cowling area. Make sure that there's no bird's nest or anything. Well, I just had it off, so there's not. While I'm down here, check the nose. I just checked the tire pressure yesterday. Check inflation. Cowl flaps look good. And then I'm going to just do a walk around. So windshield's in good condition. Actually needs to be changed. I'm not going to lie to you. Wing vents are clear and do not have any bugs in them. My pitot static, you saw me take the cover off. No bugs. This is a secondary, or actually tertiary, vent for the fuel. That looks good. Here is my stall warning. When the wind goes the wrong way, it's going to make a very, very loud horn. And honestly, I should have the master on and check that. I just checked it yesterday. I had it going off a lot as we did slow flight. Strut looks good. No cracks, dents, dings. Checking my tires. Again, I just checked the inflation on those. They're perfect. And do a walk around. The nice thing about being in a hangar is you don't have to worry about somebody hitting it. Of course, I got little paint scratches. See that crack right there? That's just Cessna does that. These ABS tips and all these ABS plastic parts, they tend to shrink over time and then crack. So it's an unfortunate thing. It's a static whip right there to discharge static. I want to feel and listen as I move my ailerons that they're okay. As an added bonus, you can look up in here. This is the counterweight that goes across, and nobody else is around, so I don't lose my finger because it's a nice shear. Check all the tails of the rivets or the shop heads, make sure they're all intact and I don't lose a weight. So some people drop their flaps. I do not on a pre-flight. That's just my choice. So check the wing, make sure that it looks good across, no dings, antennas are solid. Again, just looking to make sure, mostly at this point, that nobody has bumped the aircraft and caused any sort of hidden damage to it. And I've actually, unfortunately, witnessed more than one pilot hurt somebody else's aircraft and not fess up to it. All right, so what is this all about? This right here is just a funky way for me to hold the airplane from hitting the hangar door. Oops, let me show you. I was trying to undo this. Because I'm only about an inch or 2 inches away from the front of the spinner hitting the hangar door. So I put this here and then I put this here to kind of help me make sure that I don't, make sure that if I happen to jump in the airplane and forget, that I don't knock that into the wall and have to buy a new rudder. That would make me very, very sad. So rudder's good. Not going to move it a whole lot because it's pretty well tied into the nose wheel. It's a heavy plane. So I check the play on my trim tab. Full stop. Make sure I hit the stops. Static whip. So I need a new static whip right there, but I got one here, so put it on the squawk list. So no dents, no dings. This rubber right here is an abrasion boot. It protects the leading edge from rock chips and stuff. So I look down the belly, I look down that, it looks good. Coming across, windows are intact, no trailing edge damage. Again, aileron, full stops, travel stop. And remember, this is a plane that I just flew yesterday, not that there's any excuses, but I know it. So I'm not worried about, hey, are the ailerons somehow misrigged or something like that? Are they going the wrong way? That's not where I'm at right now. It's just making sure that there's no damage or sudden wear, something that I'm not aware of since the last time I flew it. There you see that little crack right there. So one of these videos I'll kind of work on repairing those with you guys. So trailing edge looks good. wing strut, again, no bugs. These wasps are gonna fly out at me. Everything looks good. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to shut off the video and pay attention to what I'm doing without talking to you guys and walk around one more time, use my checklist, and while my head is 100% in pilot mode and not so much talking to you mode. All right, test flight is complete. I would say it's pretty good success. I'm happy with the idle speed. I could have gone a little bit higher on the oil pressure, so not a problem. I am not about to stick my hands in that hot engine right now, because I got some oil on my face right there. Not about to stick my hands in the hot engine now and start adjusting it. That's just asking for burns, and it's hot. So, but it's definitely airworthy. I'm very happy with that. But what I'm going to do now is order up that tack seal, and then next time I pull the cowling off or do any sort of maintenance down here, I'm going to pop it open, give it maybe another half turn on the oil pressure, take it flying, see how it goes. But so far, I think that was a successful test flight. I'm happy, and I'll see you guys next time we do maintenance. Bye.